Okay guys, we're back with my positions guide. Okay guys, we're back with my positions guide for the map of Ancient this time. So we're going to start off on the T side. So the first default position you'll have on Ancient is the B ramp player. So the B ramp player is of course going to be running along this way to start at the beginning of B, and they're most likely going to be mollying up the top of the ramp here. And their job as the B ramp default is to manage any aggression that the CTs put toward this T ramp, the ramp banana to start. And their main job is to be getting info onto the B site, maybe doing jump peeks on the box site to get information to feed to your IGL about what kind of setup they're in. Is there one dark cave? Is there one dark long? And what kind of setup they're in? But overall, this guy's main job is to help take and control the bottom ramp and the banana position here. Now, the end goal for this guy's default might be able to get into this a spot like this without being noticed, so he can just sit and then listen to the information being on the B site and report back to IGL. Now let's say they're not contesting ramp a lot, then your job might be to support your B cave player, which we'll come on to in a minute, by just taking the cave control, maybe even the mid players. So you might be throwing flashes like this to help your cave player take. This means that you can help your player take cave, who's the cave player. The B ramp player also might come up to here. He's going to be one of them spamming, and then he's the one most likely that has a lot of util left, like smokes and maybe even flashes, to become the execute. So he might be either throwing a smoke on the execute or just dropping a smoke down, like in a position like either like on the door here, up here's a smoke position, or here. And so he can get ready. He gets up into the corner here and then listening for B info. He's then ready to give information back to IGL so he can call when's right for a B take. So then we've got your B cave player. So your B cave player is of course responsible for taking this part of cheetah here, and then ultimately this whole cave control here. Now he doesn't have to take and stay in the positions. It's mostly about flushing the CTs out of these spots. So ways you can do this, obviously you get a smoke here at the beginning, the front of cheetah, and then you can wait out the smoke. You can spam through the wall a lot here. You might be mollying in and then taking these fights in slowly, taking these fights. Once you've got cheetah control, you might then be deep peeking into this AWP angle here, maybe getting a teammate for a flash like this for you, which allows then you to peek in, like so, and then you can start taking these positions. And then once you've cleared these positions, you might want to come and wait, get yourself up into this corner, obviously silently, don't move like I did, and you might just wait. And again, you should be listening onto the B site. Where are the CT's positions on B? Where are they rotating? So it's really important for these guys that are defaulting toward B. Once you've got your control, sometimes it's going to take more time to get the control than others. So sometimes you might get up B quicker than others. But you want to be listening and reporting to your IGL and to the rest of your team, whoever's left alive, what util have they used on B? Is there been 2 smokes? Has there been 3? Maybe another guy from B's done one. Have they used their mollies? Have they used their flash? Is this guy long? Is he playing? So for the ramp guy, I'll give you an example and we'll move on before the spot. So let's say your ramp guy was jump spotting and he sees as a guy first orange. Now, if you've got cave control, this might be a huge information for this guy because he knows he might be playing this angle, which means then when your cave guy, your ramp guy's gone, he's first orange, then this means when he's cleared this angle, he now won't half clear this angle. You won't lazily swing out. He's going to be super disciplined to make sure he clears this angle out because your teammates called him to be there. Okay, so that's the first 2 positions on the B side of the map. So now we move on to the next one. Okay, so the next position on the T side of Inferno is the AWPer. So the AWPer has a bit more of a free role on T side at Ancient at the moment. So his job sometimes is going to be able to come to mid and take these kind of mid fights here and aiming up to make sure it's not pushing down the top of a window and shelf and lane up there. Then he might be taking these fights toward the house and just slowly clearing out these kind of angles, like so. Maybe even clearing out donut if house is still smoked, like so. Just clearing out these angles and trying to find CTs that might be hiding or tucked. So the AWPer might be coming middle. He might be coming a lone middle. Maybe he sent the other pack player over toward B. He might be coming with the mid brawler, who we'll get onto next, with mid, and he's basically going to be supporting the mid brawler out. So he might be flashing out behind and coming out and trying to take the fights while the mid brawler is taking the closer fights. Or the other option for the AWPer on this map is he might be over on B, supporting the either ramp or cave player in doing what they're doing. So the AWPer should come over to the B side of the map when the Ts are being super aggressive. The CTs are being super aggressive on the banana and ramp area. So he might be throwing the God flash through the door, which I'll show in another video. He might be coming up throwing that flash I've just shown. He might be being boosted up onto the box to try and get a opening pick on B. He also might be coming up with the cave player, maybe to walk in and take these angles for him. Or he might just be peeking mid from the other side, maybe with the mid brawler supporting him from another side. The AWPer on the T side of Ancient is either looking for picks or helping support his team take space. So now we're on to the mid-brawler. So the mid-brawler main role is to take fights and be confident in taking the fights in middle. So this might mean you get flashes from your teammates, you smoke the molly, and you go through, and you're actively trying to win these early engagements in middle. So you're actively taking these fights. You're not playing slow, you're being aggressive and trying to take this space off the CTs. It might be trying to push back this donut guy, so he's locked in donut, or even a deeper donut. It might be making sure so this CT is forced to play. He's not comfortable playing this kind of angle because he knows you could be close house. So the CT is forced back to play these kind of angles or rotate off entirely. So your mid brawler's job is to get out mid, fight and take mid control, and then make sure that the CTs, you know, they can't push up Xbox, get through window, and start taking these easy kills, getting these easy kills on your Ts. He's taking the fights. He's the guy on taking this control. So he's going to want to, this mid-brawler might want to drop util at the beginning of the round. He might want to drop flashes to get himself out mid. He's the one getting out mid early. He's the one trying to create space. The mid-brawler also has the opportunity to lurk a lot, as obviously if he gets through into house, your mid-brawler might get up into these kind of positions and then, you know, be playing the timings on the CTs. So your mid-brawler is probably going to be your more lurky player on this map. Okay, so then you've got your A-lurk. Now, even though it is the A-lurk, it's just the way of saying the solo A player. So the solo A player's main job is to make sure that main's clear up here. So sometimes you might be, you know, mollying like this to start, clearing out these kind of angles, getting control of main, and just making sure that the CTs aren't pushing up into this A main space. So a lot of the A default players' job is done once they get to a position like so, just waiting to make sure if there's any main presence. But again, it's important to be active once you're the A-lurk role. So you're not just sitting here the whole round and waiting for your RGL to say something. You need to be listening actively to your team and waiting to see if you get any information about a timing you take. Let's say, and this is exactly the same as the B ramp player. Because if the B ramp player and the A-lurk player have to be talking to each other and giving each other info. Because if the B ramp player has suddenly called, oh, maybe there's 3B now, and you know that one is in donut, this means the A guy might be playing far back, or you might have rotated off entirely. So this gives you the space to start coming out. So you need to be quickly and efficiently, you know, walking out, taking these, jiggling these angles, and moving out and trying to take space. Because if you can get out to, say, here, you've created a lot of space for your team to exploit, and maybe even rotate back to A and hit A in the long term. This is exactly the same thing as the B ramp player, just to go back quickly. Let's say your A ramp player, your A-lurk player thinks he's got a bit of a timing and creates some space. He might move out toward A. Maybe he gets a kill. This might drag the cave player out as a rotate instead of your anchor. Your B anchor's going to stay. We'll come on to those CT rolls in a bit. But your cave player might come out, which means this B ramp player he might get a timing to take this fight here on the guy running back. So it's very important that your players on the extremities, on the outside the maps, are comming and talking to each other because they're giving the most info about what's going on. Same as this mid guy. This mid guy might hear, let's say he does creep into house or he gets up close mid like so. He might hear that an A guy's rotating off. So it means that as soon as he comes at, this is your A player, your A-lurk player's time to start coming out. So it's really important on Ancient, because it's kind of a wide map, like Overpass, which we'll get to in a later series, that your people, everyone across the map is talking to each other on T side, so you know what timings you can take and are easy to take. Of course, it's also important you're talking to give your IGL the most information possible, so he can know what site is best to hit, given the man advantage you have or the utility you have left. Okay, so now we're going to move to the CT side of Ancient. Okay, CT side of Ancient first is we're going to start on the B side. So the first role is the B anchor, of course. So the B anchor's job mostly is going to be doing that kind of molly at the beginning of the round to stop B rushes, and his job is going to be playing mostly in this long area, in this first and second orange position, you know, holding these kind of angles to make sure they can't come up the ramp quickly, like so, and holding cave if needed. You know, playing these deep off angles, something like this maybe. And then he can play all the way across to Emo if he likes, something like this, playing good off angles. Maybe he's the last left on the on site, so this is a good position to play. So if you think about B site from above, this is the best way to describe it. The B anchor's job is to hold every angle that's kind of in this kind of block. So I'm going to draw it out for you. So something like this, and then imagine, oh. So the B anchor's job is to hold all the areas kind of in this side of the map. So kind of everything inside this. So I've run out of bullets, but if you imagine there's a line here, and then there's a line here. Everything this side of the line on the left is the B anchor's job. And you have to be mixing up these positions so the Ts aren't aware of what spots you are, but also you've got to be playing in good off angles with your player. So if they do have cave, tell your, get your B cave player to play in emo in dark. And play in a good crossfire with them. You can fully tuck, you can sit here jiggling. Okay? You can play in the second, you can play in the first orange. You can play behind the pillar if you're B-anking, jiggling these kind of angles. Like so, like this. But everything on this side of the line that I drew, I'll put a better image on screen now. Everything on this left side is your responsibility. So if you think it's weak, call your cave player back and maybe then get your AWP, or get your AWP player in the middle to rotate back and help you. Everything is your responsibility here. You've got to be using your util right. If you think it's a B hit, call a rotate. But that's your responsibility to anchor. And again, if you're playing, more off the site, you don't always have to take the fights here. Let's say you get one, tuck, hold this long position, because it's very hard. Once you've got this long position, even if they do take the site and there's a smoke in front of you like this, to have this position straight away is very powerful. If you die here and allow the Ts to take long control, it makes the retaking a lot harder. Okay, so now we've got your B cave player. So your B cave player is mostly throwing like any kind of pocket util or a second molly like this at the start of the round. He's then obviously, his sole aim is to hold on to the cave and cheat area for as long as possible. So it's good you can do early damage, learn some of these wallbang angles, like through here and here. And through into mid here. If you're the cave player, it's very important. Learn your early utility and like what to smoke and what to molly off the beginning here. Obviously a great player to watch for this is Rain. He's the best player in the world at playing this. Roy is also quite good. But it's about holding onto these angles as much as possible. You don't have to die. If they molly into here, just fall back. You can fall back into, you can fall back into this angle. You could fall back into here if you're on a lower bar, you've got a smaller gun. You can fall back to here. And be communicating with your B anchor, because if your B anchor senses, you might need help. It is good, it is good to use your smoke, drop your smoke here, and then come maybe tuck into dark, get in a good crossfire with your long player, maybe play into emo and play in this kind of position. You can swing off your other guys, or sorry, play pillar, swing off your guy's contact. It's all about playing with your duo on B and knowing when it's right to give up this cave control. Obviously, you don't want to give it up instantly. You don't want the Ts to get it instantly. You want the Ts to use util to take it, so they have less for the eventual execute. Also, it's important if you're the cave player. Let's say you are in cave and your B player, your B anchor, gets rushed down. He dies. That's fine. Don't insta swing out to try and take him and help him fight. Let the site go and you hold cave and make sure you hold down this position. You can jiggle in angles like this and play in these angles because again, if you hold cave, similar to how the B anchor would hold long, the chance of you retaking this B site is much higher. Also, don't forget, if you want to be more aggro at the beginning of mid, you might be, if you can get a timing, and there's maybe nothing banana, you can start clearing these angles if you're confident and coming at mid and maybe getting a bit of a B flank. But you don't want to be doing this when you're like an equal man advantage or maybe even a man up. If you're winning a 5v3, you maybe don't want to be doing these. So then we've got the mid player. So the mid player is where the AWPer most commonly goes on this map. So he's probably wanting to throw mollies like this every the start of the round. So if they run further out, then he's able to... They're running through the molly. The reason also is so he can have his AWP out as quick as possible if the Ts decide to run through. But the AWPer's main job here is to lock down all these middle angles for as long as possible until he's either smoked off or forced out of position. Holding down these kind of angles, making sure that going at mid, watching for the boost here. He can obviously then start falling back to different angles like so. Falling back as they take more deep mid control. But it's also important for your AWPer to know when it's right time to rotate off to either side. Let's say your donut player is calling steps in main, then he's going to want to start rotating off maybe to deeper CT angles like this, or trying to get to, angles in the back of temple like this, if your A player isn't already here. It's also important if the B guys are under pressure. Let's say your B anchor is called that you might need to move over. Your cave guys may be stuck in cave or he's already dead. Then you might want to, come over, maybe take an angle like this down to the ramp. You might want to come up and hold an angle like this, really tight into cave, so you can hold this. You might even want to come over and try and pick into this angle if you need a refrag. But it's important your AWPer, again, like Inferno, is versatile and he's mobile across the map and playing this position right. And if he's then on a gun, on a rifle, maybe it's a weaker buy or not a full buy, he might be trying to push down mid, trying to get more mid picks and mid information, pushing down and pushing up X. Now we come to the donut player. So the donut player is going to want to run through mid to start. You never want to run round A main or A and go into donut because that's just going to lose you time. So the donut player is going to definitely be wanting to throw this molly to start. You just kind of aim near the vine and left click throw like that. That's going to molly off as deep as possible. The reason you're throwing this one and not the W molly is because you can run through with that, and then you can get into these positions quicker like so. So your main job again as the donut player is to help in tandem your mid or your AWP player to control middle for as long as possible. Now you're not going to expect it to hold it for the whole round. You know, if a T runs out, you might want to make sure you get your pick on him, you care of shelf, and you want to fall back. Donut's a great position because there's so many little cool off angles that you're able to play in the back of here. And Donut, again, is one of the most important positions on the map. If you lose Donut and you die early as a Donut player, you're basically giving the Ts full access to A, and it becomes really hard to retake A as a CT if you haven't got this Donut position. So you want to be playing off angles in Donut. It's kind of similar. Donut's very similar to like a pit. You don't want to be losing it. You want to be taking off angles. You want to be using your utility at the right time to maybe block off angles and know when to fall back. You can always fall back. Let's say you're going to get overrun as a Donut player. You can fall back. You might want to, you know, play in off angles like this, or on the other side like this. And then you can fall back. You might want to fall back to maybe default, like an off angle like this. So then, if you want to get aggressive as a Donut mid player, you can always run down, get your teammate to flash behind the box, and you can peek mid when there's a smoke down here. So there might be a smoke like this. You know, your teammate smoke deep for you can swing. There's no one here. Clear that corner. Smoke should be better. And then you might be getting flashed up to push up to export. But overall, the Donut player is really important. You don't want to be making these aggressive picks when you know the T's are on a full buy. Because you're more likely to lose them because you're peeking into the T's, especially with the M4ONS. But the Donuts player's main job is to protect this Donut position and to control mid as much as possible. So it's really important when you know your AWP has rotated off to just hold these angles for as much as as long as you can. Hold them super tight. Your job isn't to get the kill. Your job is to know if they have crossed into house and could have got through to flank. And you want to be also listening while you're in this kind of position. You want to be listening for any main or outside A footsteps because you can hear them the best from here. Right, and then finally we're on to the A anchor. So the A anchor's job obviously is one of the most important jobs on the CT side of Ancient because you're fully responsible for the whole of the A site. Though you only have to look out for one checkpoint, but there's completely loads of different ways you might want to play this. So some rounds you might want to be getting aggressive in main, and throwing a molly like such, and you're peeking in and trying to take deep main control. This is great because you've got really early information about if they're going to come A. And same thing as if all 5 Ts or most of the Ts get called somewhere else, you might want to take a gamble and start peeking through these kind of angles. Obviously on A you can play loads of different off angles on the site, so that might be something you want to think about. You can hide in the ninja box here, and people don't check it that often. You know, you can hide on big box here, and you can be playing on these kind of angles, you know, off angles like this. Or if you're super defensive, let's say maybe you've got an AWP, you're secondary AWPing, you can play on these deep angles like this. And it's really hard to pick you off. But as the A anchor, you just want to be making sure that you're here when they A execute and multi-fragging. So it's easier for your CTs to come in and retake the site. So that's the A anchor's main job. Okay, that's the end of my Ancient CT and T side position guide. Hopefully you found this useful.